So in today's video I'm going to walk you through the repair and the conservation of this altar frontal. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from Homfray Embroidery. Welcome to my channel, and we're doing something a little bit different today because I said to a friend of mine that I would repair this altar frontal panel for him for his church. So that's what I'm going to do today, and I thought it'd be really good to share that with you and show the processes that I am going to go through. So there are actually two altar frontal panels that needed repairing. So there's a green one, and I'm going to put them up on the screen now so that you can see them. So there was a green one that's actually been done. It's been repaired. Caroline, my sister, has done that one already, and I'll show you some pictures of that one later because that one was in a lot worse condition than this one is. And then there's this purple one that I'm going to show you today that I am going to repair and I'm going to do some conservation on. So just want to talk briefly about the difference between repair and restoration and conservation, because this altar frontal here has had all three processes worked on it. So if I'm repairing something, I'm just going to fix the part that is broken. So in the case of this purple one, I'll fix the broken thread so it doesn't get damaged and fall apart any further. If I'm restoring it, I'm going to basically get it back to its original condition. So I'm going to do whatever work needs doing to it to get it in a good condition so it continues to be used. This one has already been restored, and I'll show you how I know that in a second. But some of the processes might include putting the embroidery on a new fabric and using some new threads in it. And if I'm conserving something, I'm keeping as much of the original as possible. So I wouldn't put any new threads on it. I wouldn't transfer it to a new piece of fabric. I'm just going to keep as much of the original as possible so it won't look like it was when it was new. But I will show you that process as well because I am going to do that on this piece. So both the green and the purple frontals are not new altar frontals. They have actually come from a previous church. So I don't know how old they are, but you can see with this here, so this is the symbol Omega, and this is the original piece of embroidery. But it's actually been cut out. It's been cut off the original backing fabric. So this is a new backing fabric. This is the old embroidery. So they've cut around it and they've sewn it down onto this one, and they put in edging around it. So they've transferred it. So I mentioned a bit earlier about transferring your embroidery as a way of a restoration technique. So if your old fabric, if it was probably silk, if the silk has gone a little bit rotten, you can take the embroidery off the silk, lift it off, put it on a new piece of fabric and sew it down to that one. I've got a little couple of samples of that actually. You can see this one here. So this is the silk backing fabric. You can see it's got all this iron mould on it. It's really not very good condition anymore. This is the original embroidery, but this has already been transferred. So this has been stitched onto another piece of fabric here. You can just see it underneath here, and they've cut this out and they put this on this one, and now this piece of fabric has got rotten, and I think what's happened is somebody has tried to do it again and they gave up. So I think what they actually did is cut it out. I've got another bit of it here that you can see. I'll show you this one on the front camera, and they've just cut this bit off, and whatever bit this is attached to, that bit has been transferred to the fabric, and I think they thought this bit was too difficult. So that's what the technique is, and you can see from the detail in this how hard it would be actually to cut around that and lift it off and put it on another one, which is why I think they've just done the middle and not these little bits. But that's what the process is, and if I just get this one under the camera above, you can see a little bit here how that transfer process is showing itself. So you can just see this purple stitch all the way around the edge. That's what's holding the new embroidery, the old embroidery, sorry, onto the new fabric. So you cut it out, you put a stitch around the edge, and then you cover that stitch up with some couching. So you can tell quite easily if something has been transferred, but it's a really great way to keep some embroidery going, especially if it's old and it's got a lot of history. You can keep using it and you can keep enjoying the embroidery. So I just wanted to show you that technique because you might see that quite a lot in this kind of embroidery. So I'm just going to zoom in on this a little bit and show you what's actually wrong with it. So you can see here a little bit more detail about where it's been added onto this backing fabric. Now this backing fabric's not very nice. You can see how wobbly it is. It's supposed to be quite tight on there. So we've got a lot of different materials going on here, so we have to think about that. But I just want to show you this gold. So some of this couching is a little bit loose at the edges, but look at the gold. The gold is just hanging off this piece. This whole length of it here just not stitched down at all. So obviously this is really fragile. and I need to do something about that, so I need to repair that part quite urgently. This is just going to fall off, and I haven't tried it on this frontal, but on the green frontal the gold threads were very brittle and they were just breaking, they were just snapping, because originally I thought, oh, can I take them through to the back and finish them off properly, and I couldn't because the threads were just breaking. Now I know this is an original gold thread because of the colour that's going through the centre of it. So you might just be able to see a little bit of orange showing through there. So that orange tells you there's actually gold content in the gold that's wrapped around the core thread. So I know that this is old gold because of that colour through it. So I just need to be really careful with it because it's obviously very fragile because it is old. So I am going to sew it down and just stabilise all these loose threads. So I'm going to go over the whole thing and look for any loose threads that need couching down. I'm just going to move this around and show you this bit over here. So there's a little bit more here that's coming off, and there's an end there, so I need to stabilise that. And then if I turn the whole thing around and show you the top of it, you can see there's a fair bit around here that's loose as well. So what this is the thread that's holding the gold down. So you put this gold on top, this is called Japanese thread, you put it on top of the fabric, you stitch over it, and it's those stitches that hold the gold into place. So the only time the gold goes through to the back of the fabric is when you take the gold through to the back at the ends of it, otherwise it all sits on top of the surface, and it's that couching thread that has disintegrated and disappeared. It was probably silk, they would have used silk originally, and the silk has disintegrated and it's not now holding the gold, so the gold's kind of hanging off. So that's why those little bits are coming off. So I just need to go through the whole piece and make sure that I stabilize all of those loose pieces of gold. I just want to show you the back quickly as well, because there's some dodgy things going on the back. So you can see it's been transferred, so you can see this stitching here where you stitched around the shape and you stitched it onto this new bit of fabric, so that's a really good way of telling. But look at these huge, great big long threads hanging on the back, and things just aren't finished off properly. That's attached to a stitch, and if that breaks then your stitch comes out. So it is quite important to finish your threads properly on the back because you don't want it all falling out in the front. So I am just going to run over the back quickly, and I'm going to get all those bits tied down and finished off just to make sure that there isn't any more damage that needs repairing later. So I'm going to show you the materials that I'm going to use to do the repairs on this. I'm going to use modern materials. They want to carry on using this in the church. It needs to be really strong. You don't want any more silk degrading and disintegrating. So I'm going to use modern materials. So I'm going to use a polyester cotton to sew the gold down with. This is quite a normal process for you. The gold work technique is a nice strong sewing thread. So it's got polyester in it. I've got a colour that's going to match my gold so that you can't see so much of the thread and you can see more of the gold. So I'm going to use that. I've got some very small needles, and I've actually got straws needles. These are the same width all the way up, so this is a nice fine needle to go through my gold. And because it's been transferred onto a fabric, there's quite a lot of layers in here. I've got 2 layers of backing fabric. Whatever the gold was originally stitched on, there's some padding in there, and there's a gold, so there's quite a lot to go through. So I've got a nice fine needle to do that with, and I've got some beeswax as well. I'm just going to beeswax the thread. It'll just make sure it goes through nice and smoothly. This gold is quite fragile. I don't want to poke the needle through it and damage it any more than it is, so anything that can help me there I'm going to use. So I'm going to use the beeswax as well. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called netting. I'm going to net this piece. So this beautiful wafty net is actual conservation net. It is specifically for this purpose. It's a very expensive net, and I bought this to do this altar frontal with. And what you do with this, and this is what you would use in a conservation technique. So I'm going to do a bit of repair and a bit of conservation on this as well. So I'm going to place this net over the whole shape. I'll line it up straight, and I'm going to use the net to hold the gold down. So I'm going to stitch the gold down, but I'm not confident it's going to stay in that condition. It is brittle. It could get further damage to it. So I'm actually going to stitch this net over the top. So I'm going to lay it over the top of the gold. I stitch all the way around the shape, and then I'm just going to put a few stitches all the way around just to connect the net to the gold. And you can't really see it. It's amazing how the net disappears. I have actually coloured this net. It was white, and I have just put a bit of colour on it. You can dye this net just to make it an off-white colour just so it blends in with the gold a bit more, but it is really good at disappearing. So the gold will lose a little bit of its shine, but it will make sure that it's really well preserved. Nothing's going to fall off. If it does rot, it's underneath the net and it's not going to fall off everywhere. So that's an extra precaution really, and I think while I'm doing it I might as well do that process. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I'm going to stitch the gold down. I'm going to show you how I put the net down, how I cut the net away, and then we'll have a look at it when I've done all of that. So I'm going to stitch down these loose ends of gold first. I've got a single thread in my needle and I've just run it through the beeswax just once, just to coat that just gently so it will go through the gold nice and easily. I put a little knot in the end to start my thread, and I'm going to stitch these pieces down. Now there would have been a rhythm to this. It would have been like a brick pattern with the stitches that's holding it down. So you would stitch in even distances down 2 pairs. They're always put down in 2s. They will go down in doubles. And then the next row you would stitch between. So I'm going to try and keep that rhythm going if I can, but then I will put extra stitches in if I need to secure the ends of the thread. And I just want to explain what's going on here. So this has actually got string underneath it. So this is a form of goldwork padding, and if I just show you this quickly. So this is how this stitch is done. So these are pieces of string. They have been couched over at equal intervals, and then you lay your gold on top of this, and then you put your couching stitch in between the string, and then you alternate it on other rows, and it makes this sort of pattern. So this is the technique that's actually being used here. So you can see the string across here. So the gold is going to go over the string, so I need to couch it down either side of the string. You couch down here and you couch down here. You don't couch down through the string. So I need to make sure I do that and try and follow that pattern, but I've got my gold stitched down as well. So I'm just going to dive in and have a go. So I've got a little knot in the end. I'm just going to put that on the edge. That will come off later. And I'm just being really careful. Don't know what's under here. There's quite a lot of fabric under there. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches. Just to start my thread off, being super careful where I come out. I don't want to poke through that gold if I can help it. So I'm just going to take these two. These look to be the worst. Then I'm going to come up really carefully because I don't want to poke that with the gold. Right on the side of this string here. Go over the top and I go down the other side next to that previous row of gold. Got a little laying tool here. This will help me just to guide my thread and stop it catching on any gold, and just being super careful that I don't do any more damage than there already is. So you can see me pulling that down now. That's nice and secure, and if I can, I'm going to try and do the next stitch in between the previous one. So I'm going to have to peer closely. So there's a stitch there, and a stitch there. So I'm going to go about here. Doesn't matter too much, nobody's going to really see it, but if you put all your stitches together it can look a bit obvious. So I'm going to do that as much as I can, just keep that pattern of the stitches going. So over the top and down next to the previous row. You'll notice I'm not handling the gold. I'm not going to touch the gold if I don't have to. Pull that nice and down, securely down, and then just going to come up to this next bit of string and put a stitch in there. So stitch either side of the string. The gold should be lying flat next to each other. I don't want to cross them over, so I just need to make sure that I don't get them crossed. There we go. And then I'm going to jump over that string and I'm going to put some more stitches in. So it's not very technical, really. I'm just holding it down wherever I can hold it down, make sure it's nice and secure, and then the net will go over the top as well for that extra layer. So I'm just going to whiz around the whole thing now and do that. You don't need to see me do that, it's not very interesting to watch, but I'm going to go around that and then we'll come back and look at it and see how to get the net on. So I spent an hour doing that stitching, and if I just tilt it up, hopefully you can see that all the ends have been sewn down. Looks quite nice actually. Like that. When you look a bit closer, it's not in a very good state, this. So I would call that a repair. I've just mended the broken bits basically, and tied it all down. And if I just flip it over, you can see where I have done the repair on the back. You can see this yellow stitching here. We've gone all the way around the top. There's more stitches in the top. That bit was really quite fragile, and it wasn't too bad down this side actually, and then a few more in the bottom as well. So you can see what I've repaired there from the yellow stitching, and I've just finished all these loose horrible purple thread ends off on the back, and some of them were really loose, and how they haven't come out on the front I don't know. So I've tied all those down as well, so it's nice and neat and tidy on the back. I just thought I'd do that so you can see how many stitches I've put in. So if I was going to do a restoration with that, I would probably put 3 times the number of stitches I've put in. In quite a few places when I put the needle through and I caught the gold, the stitches there weren't any stitches there basically. The gold's just been lying flat on the surface, so there's not a lot of the original thread left. So I'd probably pull that out and put a lot more stitching in and just stabilise every little bit of it really, because it's not in good condition. It's really past a kind of restoration stage, probably not that worthy of a conservation stage either. It's not in a good condition, this. It'd probably be better to start again, but we don't have that choice. So I'm not going to do any restoration on it. I'm going to do some conservation on it. I'm going to keep it as it is. I'm not going to add anything new to it. And I'm going to do the netting technique on it just to make sure it's really secure for the future. So just before I start the netting bit, I just thought I'd mention these trestles. You can see them. So they're like table legs with that tabletop on them basically. And I used these throughout my whole apprenticeship because you can put your frame on, you can balance it either side, and you can sit at it like a table. So they're really good if you're doing a large embroidery, something like this. These are handmade. I think there might be a few people who make them. You'll have to do a little bit of a search for that. Or you can go to IKEA and get some table trestles. They do work quite well. So if you did want to do something a bit bigger like this and actually sit at it, these are really good. So I just thought I'd mention what those are because I know somebody's going to ask me about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the net on. So I've just cut myself a slightly smaller piece so I'm not fighting the whole net. And I'm just going to place it over the top. So the principle is I stitch it down, pin it in place, stitch it in place, and then I cut away the excess, and then what's left is going to be covering that gold. So if there is any more threads come undone or loose or degrade, then the gold's not going to fall off. It'll be caught under the net. So this is a sort of final thing I can do really to stabilise it. So I'm going to start from the middle. So all this will be cut out. So what I want to do is have it quite tight over the gold. I don't want it to pucker and have bobbly bits in it, so I want it nice and flat. So I'm going to pin it in place just very carefully. So I'll probably start from the top, I think. I'm just going to stick the pin in the fabric like so. So either side of the gold, and then I'm just going to work my way round. I'm just going to smooth out that net, make sure it's sitting nice and flat. I'm going to pin all the way down here and around that. I'm going to get the whole thing pinned into place, and then I can start my stitching. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to go inside first, I think, and stitch down here and stitch down here. Now I'm going to stitch on the outside. You can see this, let me point, of this couching stitch. So this couching stitch is holding the gold work onto the new fabric when it was transferred, and I'm going to stitch down on the outside so that the net is completely covering the gold and that couching stitch. So on a couple of the corners the couching stitch is just coming up, so this will just add some extra security to that as well. And I'm also going to do it in a different colour. I'm going to do it in purple. This is quite a good match for that couching thread. It's a bit lighter than the fabric, but it's going to go right up to the couching thread. So I want to make everything as invisible as I can. I'm actually going to double it up, I think, because I want this edge to be really nice and secure. I'm going to cut as close as I can to it when I cut the net away. So I want this stitching to be secure, and I'm going to work a back stitch. I want a solid row of stitching So if I just remove that centre pin there, I'm just going to come up right in the top here. In fact, I just come to the side. And then I'm just going to work a back stitch. This is a good time for my laying tool. There's lots of pins sticking out of this, so if I don't control this, then I'm going to get my thread all wrapped around my pins. So just going to work down here, quite a small back stitch, and as soon as I put some stitches in, you can feel that start to stabilise. Really nice and tight, so that's going to hug down the side of that couching there, and then I'll come across here and I'll pull it tight across here and I'll couch it down there, and you can see how you can't really see that net. It's really amazing how much it disappears into the gold. And then what I will do when I've been around the whole thing is I'm going to come and just put a couple of stitches back through the gold with the gold thread, just to stabilise it on the gold as well. So I'm going to go all the way around with my purple thread. You don't want to see that, so I shall see you when I've got back round to the beginning. Okay, so I haven't got all the way round. It takes longer than you think, and I'm losing the daylight now, and it's actually quite hard to see, even with good lights. It's quite hard to see. So I have done enough. I've done this little section here all the way around the edge. That netting is nice and tight there. You can just see that on the edge. So I'm going to show you the 2 stages I would do next to finish this on this little bit down here, and then I can go and finish the rest in my own time without rushing it. So I'm going to zoom in on this little bit and I'll show you the next part. So you can see how nice and tight this net is across here, and this is the loose part that I'm going to cut off. But before I cut that off, I just want to do a little bit of stitching down here. Because of these high areas where this string padding is, the net isn't sitting quite flat on this gold, and if any of this did disintegrate, it's going to end up just hanging around in the pocket basically. So I want to just stabilise that down so the net is touching the gold in all of these troughs here between the soft string. So I'm just going to do that with my yellow thread. So I'm going back to a single yellow thread. I put some wax on it, and I think what I will do is I'm just going to do a zigzag. I'm going to do fairly large stitches. It's all relative. There's still fairly small stitches. I'm going to do too big, and I'm going to do them in a kind of zigzag pattern, I think. So I'm going to come like this and just go between these areas of string padding just to get this net nice and secure. So a good way to find my way in, rather than just stick my needle through the gold, is I'm going to come up in the purple bit, and I know where that is underneath, and I can just step it inwards until I can kind of feel where the gap is. That takes a little bit of practice to do that. And then I'm just going to come up and over a piece of that gold, just as I did at the beginning. But now I'm just catching that net down on top, and I'm making the net secure. So I'm going to put a stitch in here, one in here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. So I'm doing fairly wide stitches now compared to the ones that I have just been doing. So over the top, just catching that net down, and then I'm super happy that that's going to be really secure. Then I'm doing everything that I can do to stop this from deteriorating further and needing more repair. So it's worth spending the extra time, I think, just to do this. I could just leave that net on the top. It's nice and tight over the top. Nothing's really going to come out of there, I don't think. But I think this extra stage is just worth doing while I am here. It's quite hard to find your way between the gold, and I can just see pushing up some of that gold. So there's a lot of it that is still quite loose, and this net is just going to hold that in place. And it's quite nice putting the net on it. It feels much more secure. Being really careful with it. I'm still being really careful with it, but now that the net is on, I just feel it is a lot more stable, and I don't need to worry quite so much about it. And if anybody catches it when they're moving it in and out of the altar, if they caught it on their clothing or zips or buttons or anything like that, they're not going to pull any of the gold off. So it's definitely future-proofing it so it can be used, hopefully, for many years to come. So I've just done down here and around the edge, and I can carry on up there and finish that off. But I want to show you how to get rid of the net. I'm going to cut the net off because I've got some special scissors here. So I've got these ones that curve upwards. So that means I can cut without digging the point of the scissors into the fabric. What I really don't want to do at this stage is cut this purple fabric. That would be a disaster. So I'm taking every precaution. I've also got these ones. So these have got the little bobble on the bottom. So that means that that's not going to dig into that fabric there. And I can cut with the top one. So they're normal scissors, but the bottom bit is just going to protect that bottom bit there. So I'm going to use a combination of those two. So I think I'm going to go in with the curved ones first. I'm going to go flat. I'm just going to cut off all of the excess. So I'm not going to go right up close initially. Just going to cut all of this away. So I'll get rid of the sort of bulk of the net because my scissors are curving up. I know I'm not going to cut into the fabric. I don't want to go too far with that because I haven't done the other side yet. So I'm just going to leave that like that for now. And then I can go around here as well. Just going to do it super carefully. Just cut that off. And then I can come in closer. Now, one advantage that this is a little bit loose, this purple fabric, and ideally want it a bit tighter. And if I was restoring it a bit further, I would probably tighten that up. But I can use that to my advantage now because I can just push that up and I can push that net up like so. And then I can come in with these scissors underneath and I can just cut along it. So again, I don't have to go right up close on this occasion. I can do a couple of passes of this, just cut off as much as I can. And that little ball on the bottom is stopping me cutting into the purple. And then I want to get as close to that as I can do, so then I can go in a third time and I can really push up underneath that. And I can be a lot more accurate with this and don't want to cut through those purple stitches that I've sewn the net on with. That's what's holding the net over the gold. So I'll just do this super carefully. And I can just keep going in and in until I've got as close as I think I can get with that. That's quite hard under the camera because I really need to get over the top of it and concentrate really hard. But I just wanted to show you the two techniques that I'm going to use for that with my two types of scissors. And I just want to get this net as close as I can to the gold so that you can't see any of it on this purple fabric. So I'm going to do a bit more of that. I've got to finish stitching my net down all the way around the edge of the omega shape. Then I'm going to go down the middle and just secure it with a little zigzag stitch all the way around just to keep the net nice and close to that gold. And then I'm very carefully going to cut all the net away. And then it's done and hopefully ready to go for a lot more uses yet. So we are coming up to Advent soon. It'll soon be time to use this purple one, so I need to get it finished quite quickly so it's going up in situ. So what I will do is I will try and get some photos of it in situ. The green one that we have done as well, it's absolutely fabulous when it's on the altar frontal. So I'll try and get some pictures of those when I can. You can see those on my social media platforms, on Facebook page and on my Instagram page and on my YouTube channel community page as well. And I will also put them in a chit chat. I think one day we'll do a Tuesday chit chat and I'll try and show you the finished ones and look, and so you can see them in situ. So I just want to mention the green one while we're here. I'm going to put some pictures of it up over here because this one was in a lot worse condition than this purple one was. A lot of the thread has come out. The couching thread that's holding that gold Japanese thread down had all gone. It's all disintegrated and there's not really anything holding the gold on. And you can see all of the gaps in between the gold threads. So really what this one needed was to take out all of those threads and then couch the gold back down in the pattern that it would have been originally over the string. Now that is a massive amount of work in that, and I kind of remit for these was to stabilize them so they can be used in the church. They didn't have the funds to do a full-on restoration like that to replace all the stitching in it. So what I got Caroline to do, because Caroline did this one for me while I was away, so it was just really stabilize those gold threads just like I've done on the purple one as well, just to make sure that they're all firm and they're not going to come off. So there's a lot more gaps in this one. It doesn't look quite so neat and tidy, and as I said, they're both sort of a little bit past probably their usable life really. So it's just a case of doing what we can just to make sure that they continue to be used. So it was put a couple of stitches in, hold the gold in place where it was. It had a previous repair on it. You can see these great big long yellow stitches across a little sort of bunch of gold, which is really not very good, and not what the pattern was and not how it would have been done originally. But again, it wasn't going to take out that repair. That takes time to take out someone else's repair. So it was just put some extra stitches over the top, stabilise it, net it like I'm doing here on the purple one as well. The shape is more complicated with this one. There's the circle in the middle to go round as well, but the process is exactly the same. So put the net over it, catch the net down throughout the gold threads, throughout the piece, and then cut the excess away around the edge just to make sure it's super stable. So a lot more work in that one. Karen did a sterling job getting that one done. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm excited to go to the church and see it finished and to see them up again. But I just wanted to show you both of them, because just to see the difference in them and how much you can actually repair and how much you can actually save for the future of these pieces. So something a little bit different for you today. I hope you found that interesting to see the processes that I'm used on these altar frontals. I'll put some images of them up on our social media pages, so if you're interested in this, do go and check those out. And if you're interested to learn more about the goldwork technique, we have some videos on that, quite a lot of videos. They're older videos now, but they're still very relevant. You can go and learn all about the different metals and the different threads and see how to use those. You can go and check those out in this playlist up here. Lots of information for you there on goldwork. If you've enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up as always, much appreciated, and I will see you next time.